Okay, going to get started on the next step. It's long awaited, uh, and that would be adding the very subtle iridescence to the front and top of uh, the head, continuing down to the back of the head and on the backs of the cheeks. You could see that that's where I applied the red orange, where on the cheeks I used the orange red. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you would have missed an earlier video that explained when I call a color red orange, that would mean red is the predominant shade or the predominant color, where if I call it orange red, then orange is going to be the predominant color, but it's still going to have some red in it. So I use the orange red on the cheek area, which will not have any iridescence, and then I added the red orange to the rest of the head and tinted that down after I had applied it to the head. So you can go back and review how I got to this point when it comes to the coloration if you weren't watching all the videos. And I want to make it really clear that it is important, if you're going to use iridescent powders, these powders are not bronzing powders. These powders actually are the color that you see, and this is lavender or purple. And you can't just brush this powder onto your duck's head or onto a carving and expect it's going to stay. It needs to have something that adheres it to the surface, the painted surface. So the paint that's on this head is already dry, and so to apply the iridescence, it's going to be important to add a supporting color, and it's not going to take much. Just a little bit of paint, and then that's what's going to allow the powder, which I get from Kurt's Waterfall Corner. It comes in about 15 different colors, I think, and my favorite is the purple and the blue and the green. It works really well on my loons. So the other thing is to be aware of is you don't want to use a lot. It's not necessary to use a lot of iridescence, and some people opt out. They don't want to use any. Some people would say, well, are you sure you want to use iridescence? Well, I do, and we're going to, and I'm going to show you how you can. So my supporting color in this is going to be my alizarin crimson, which is super strong pigment. You can see I'm not going to need but that much for the entire part of adding this onto my bird. Now, I'm using an Isabey Kolinsky Sable. It's a filbert, and it's relatively new, so it still has its shape. The amount of paint and the way it comes off of the Kolinsky Sable brushes is something that's not matched by any other fiber used for hand painting brushes. So some people would say, why are you using a Kolinsky Sable just to do this step? Well, this is it reaches into the detail of my bird, and it will deliver that paint into the depths. So I just used a really, it's thin, it's not a whole lot, and I'm going to just brush over the areas that I'm going to add the iridescent powder. And the thing that's nice about this powder is that it refracts the light so that you can see it is truly the color that you're adding. Just real thin. I want to keep this lit really well, but I tend to hit my long-handled brush right into the lamp. That's what that tinging noise is that you hear. Some of you are familiar with it, I'm pretty sure. It scares me in the middle of the night usually when that happens, but everything's quiet. Use my palette knife. Use my palette knife, and I'm going to take out the smallest amount of this purple iridescence. Now, I'm going to pull the iridescence. It's iridescent powder, which doesn't look like there's anything in here. And there's a lot more than you think. I'm just going to deliver it sparingly along the back of the head, back of the cheeks. You can always come back and add more, but you really can't get rid of it once you get it in there. So you want to be sure you're not using way too much. And you want to make sure there's paint in the mixture you're using, because the paint is what's going to adhere this to the head. The other trick about this iridescence is that it doesn't show until it's dried a while. So you need to apply it and then just sit back for a little while and let it dry. Decide then if you think you need to add more. Use enough medium too so that it actually flows into the texture. Gonna get a little tiny bit more. See quite as much in the top of the crust here, so alright. I'm going to let that set up on that area. And then we've got a little bit more to do. This is a copper color that I'm going to apply on the cheeks. And it's not so much of an iridescence as it is a shimmer that I see on the entire head. And there's no shimmer at all in the cheek area. So I'm going to add a little bit of that to the cheeks. And I'm going to use the orange of the cheek. Just pulling the skin aside so I can access it. Don't need a lot. All right. You would think it would have been so much more, but more is not better. In this case, less is more. Alrighty. Wipe my brush out. So, I don't know if you can see the iridescence. It's subtle, and you can see it from when you turn it from side to side. There's a sheen that's been added. So the next thing I'll be doing is sealing the bill. So now that we've got our iridescence applied and set up, I'm going to use this Winsor Newton Professional Satin Varnish to seal the bill. I decided not to go with the Kurtz Waterfall Corner Bill Sealer because it does yellow in time, and it's not available anymore. So I don't want to show you something you can't use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this into my little custard cup that I use for lacquer thinner, but it's clean right now. I'm just going to spray enough of this product into the cup, and then I'm going to use a brush to apply it so that I can have control over where it's going. So that puts a bit into the and for a job like this, I'm going to use my slant tip 1/4 inch lang nickel because it can get into all those tight areas. Just dipping into the varnish, bringing it right up to the face line. And you don't want to make many passes of this. You want to get your first coat on and let it dry. Oh, I do have a fuzzy here. Bringing it right up to those feathers. And adding this this top coat will seal in your paint and give a nice sheen that you would find on an actual bill. It also pops the colors extremely. And gives just enough shine to the surface of the bill. Be sure and get up into the sides. Use the point to get into the little corner. For you ladies, it's very much like painting your nails. You don't want to disturb that first coat, and you want to let it just set up before you do anything more to it, if you need to at all. And I just want to make sure I've gotten right inside, in between the upper and lower mandibles. Bill. It'll dry a little more satiny than that. Just when it's wet, it looks shinier. Okay, so I want to be sure and clean my brush out of from that. And when you're done with your entire project, that's when it's time to use the lacquer thinner and really clean your brush as well. My next step will be to I'm gonna wipe out my lacquer thinner jar or custard cup. The next step's going to be to do some cleanup work on the bottom. I need to clean up a couple of overpaint areas, and I'm going to put another, probably spray on another coat of sealer on the bottom. Won't take much to sand off those little areas.